My 24 female father passed away when I was 17. It was a tough time for my family and I, but we eventually moved on. 3 years later, my mother decided to remarry. I was hesitant about it at first, but I wanted my mother to be happy, so I tried to give her new husband a chance. The point is, living with this guy was unbearable, and it seems that my mother has followed the same path as him. However, my grandparents, who are extremely wealthy and have always loved me very much, always hated him and tried convincing my mother to not marry him. They had various reasons for this, and even after my half-siblings were born, their feelings towards him never changed. My mother's new family is financially irresponsible, and they always assume that they will inherit my grandparents' entire estate, so they are taking advantage and making excessive expenses, to the point of getting into debt. Recently, my grandparents called me over to their house for a personal talk. While we were having dinner, they told me that I will inherit the majority of the estate, and my mother will receive only a ridiculous amount. They asked me to promise not to say anything to my mother, and I did as they asked. I feel guilty about this because my mother's family will end up in financial ruin because they are counting on money that doesn't exist. So, am I the a-hole? You are not your mother's parent. She and her new family are making decisions based on assumptions. Perhaps they have never heard the expression, "Don't count your chickens before they are hatched." Please do not waste one more minute of your life worrying about this. You can plan to assist them in some way to be determined in the future, but this is not your problem. Not the a-hole. If they're irresponsible and greedy, that's their problem. You would be the a-hole if you betray your grandparents' trust and say anything. If you're worried about your mother, then gently try to steer her in the direction of fiscal responsibility, but keep your mouth shut about what was said. And your grandparents are giving her a ridiculously low amount so that she can't contest the will and say she was forgotten in it. Not the a-hole, and it's not your information to share as they asked you not to. What you do want to do is have another talk with your grandparents and ask for their guidance and advice as to how to handle the funds, what fiscal advisor, and if their lawyer will help you with any pushback from your mom. Finally, realize that even if you did give up some of the money out of guilt, etc., it will get wasted from what you say here. If anything, maybe suggest your grandparents put token amounts back for each of your half-siblings, like $10K or $20K each, that goes to them at a certain age, 25 or something. Then that should also be an excuse if they come around asking for money down the line. But they left you X. What did you do with that? My 26 female stepdad, Jimmy, 50 male, has been in my life for 12 years and has been married to my mom, 48 female, for 10 years. I love him a lot. He has a special place in my life, and at this point, I see him more than my bio dad. He's also close to my older sister, Allie, 28 female, and my younger brother, Brian, 23 male, and legally adopted them at their request when they turned 18. He also has a son, Jason, 31 male, from his previous relationship that my mom has adopted as well. The topic of inheritance came up as Jason just had a child, and Jimmy had to do some reconfiguring of his will to include his contribution to grandchildren. We were joking around and said that the new grandchild would get it all, because she's obviously very loved as his first baby, grandchild. And Jimmy said no, things were divided equitably amongst the 4 children. I asked him what that looked like, and it was essentially 30% for each of my siblings and 10% for me. I was a little shocked because he said things were being divided equitably, but everyone else was getting more than me. His explanation was that as the legal father of each of my siblings, it's his full responsibility to make sure his children are taken care of. And since I still have a legal and parental relationship with my bio dad, I would have access to whatever he left me, whereas my siblings just have him and my mom, so it was fair in his eyes. This obviously hurt since we have a great relationship, and I've always considered him an additional father figure. We got into a bit of an argument after I expressed how upset I was. He pointed out that he has supported me like a father in many other ways, which is true. However, to me it's not about the money, and I told him that he was being petty and punishing me for not wanting to legally be his daughter. He seemed really hurt and told me I was being an a-hole and walked away, which my siblings agree with. I didn't think I was being the a-hole until talking to Allie, and she told me how upset Jimmy was, and also called me an entitled a-hole. Am I really the a-hole here? You're the a-hole. You can't have things both ways. But wanting the equal share of his estate that his legal children get makes precisely 0 sense. You're lucky to have even had that option, as many don't, and to have a step-parent that took an active interest in establishing and maintaining a close bond with you, and who didn't throw a fit when you, unlike the rest of your siblings, elected to not be adopted. You made a choice, as did your siblings, and this is part of what that choice you made comes along with. Why should you get a share equal to theirs of his estate, as well as your dad's estate? What makes you any more deserving than Allie or Brian? Not so low-key hoping he doesn't cut into your percentage for the granddaughter now. You're the a-hole. I don't know why your siblings decided to let him legally adopt them and you didn't, But it sounds like he's just plain closer to them than he is to you. It's his choice who he gives his money to when he dies, and rather than acting like you're entitled to an inheritance, you should be grateful that you're getting one. No a-holes. I understand why you are upset, and I might feel the same way. But if your bio dad is leaving you something while your other siblings only have him to rely on, I can see where he's coming from, that it's fair, and all kids be equally taken care of. If your dad is some broke D-addict who obviously wouldn't leave you anything, then I'd change it to not the a-hole. I, 38, have a 16-year-old daughter with my ex-wife. We divorced about 10 years ago and share custody of our daughter. She does 2 weeks at my place and 2 weeks at her mom's. My daughter and the woman I am dating have never gotten along. My girlfriend, 26, and I have been together 3 years, and we plan to marry, and we share a home. I'm in the Air Force, and my specific job requires me to be pretty much unreachable from the rest of the world when I'm on shift, and I'm on shift for 24 hours at a time. Because of this, my girlfriend unfortunately has to pass on some things come from me to my daughter. This is simply because I cannot be there to look after her. My daughter has in the past started to be a bit more rebellious. She's a teenage girl, and we all know how they are, so I'm not overly concerned by it, until she starts being more than an angst teen. Part of this is just refusing to do things like chores. In our home, she is responsible for separating all laundry and folding hers, and for cleaning her bathroom once a week. On a day where I was at work, I left a note for her to read after school to take care of this. Now, I wasn't here for this part, but this is what I've gleaned from her and my girlfriend. My daughter didn't want to do chores, and came home and immediately started changing, and was about to go out to get food with her friends. I normally don't let her go out unless she's finished her chores. My girlfriend stopped her and told her no. My daughter didn't like that, and they got into an argument. My girlfriend felt that she shouldn't be letting my daughter do things I wouldn't, and my daughter didn't want someone who isn't her parent bossing her around. My daughter, out of anger, called her the C word. To me, this was unacceptable, so I grounded her. I took away her car privileges, and I cut her allowance from $150 a month to $50 a month, because I provide both of these in exchange for her doing the things she needs to do in school and home, and this includes chores and respecting people. She told her mom this, and her mom cursed me out. She said I shouldn't be having my playmate act like she's her mom. I felt like this isn't what was happening. She was passing on things I need her to do. She wasn't acting like her mom. Am I the a-hole? Ugh, everyone sucks here. You're dating someone who's closer in age to your daughter than you, which makes you pretty gross by default. And then you left your daughter with this person. Your daughter's behavior was not acceptable. The chores and the language was appalling, and she should be punished for it. But frankly, how can you expect her to act like an adult when you're acting like a gross teenager yourself? Everyone sucks here. You've put your daughter in a really crappy situation where she's being taken care of by someone that isn't her parent and hasn't been around all that long, while you are unavailable completely to her. She shouldn't be saying those words. You need to figure out a better situation than a girlfriend being in charge of her, etc. I also fault you way more than your daughter in this situation. Not the a-hole. Everyone harping on the age gap must have trouble in math, because 12 years and 10 years are not a humongous difference. Your girlfriend is also not some random person if you've been together 3 years. Your daughter is old enough to know the expectation and follow it. Yeah, she may be a typical teenager by trying to skirt around her responsibilities when she can, but it's the adult's job to make sure it gets done regardless. Your daughter disrespecting an adult just because she's upholding a house rule in her house, especially an incredibly reasonable one like finishing chores before going out with friends, should 100% be disciplined. From what her mom said, though, I can almost 100% guarantee the lack of respect for girlfriend is coming from mom. I wouldn't call a 3-year relationship a plaything when you live together and are planning to get married. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years, and we recently celebrated our anniversary. He got me a really beautiful necklace that has both our birthstones and our cats. I've been obsessed with it since he gave me it, and I've been wearing it everywhere I can. His family throws monthly get-togethers. We normally miss them since they aren't the nicest people to me, but he had promised them he'd come this time, since it was his little sister's birthday. He told me I didn't have to go, but I felt a little bad if I let him deal with them alone, so I decided to come along too. The get-together was fine, until his friend, well, more like ex-friend, came up to me and started gushing over my necklace. I would have taken it as a normal compliment if I didn't know how this girl was. She has been in love with my boyfriend since they were teens, and apparently, she has yet to let it go. My boyfriend saw how she was annoying me and took me away to get some more food. And when we came back, she came right back up to me and begged me to let her try on the necklace. What possessed her to even ask that is beyond me, but I politely declined and told her I wasn't comfortable with her doing that. She kept on pleading and telling me how she just wanted to see how it would look on her. I snapped at her, telling her she was pushing my boundaries, and said, "For the love of God, please stop asking." She got upset and looked a bit teary-eyed. She went to the other room dragging my boyfriend's little sister with her, and I could tell they were ranting about me. My boyfriend's mom pulled me aside and said that I was being unreasonable, and if I had a heart in me, I would just have let the poor girl try it on. I walked away from her to go to my boyfriend so we could leave because I was seconds away from losing it, and heard a couple of his family members talking about how much of a bee I am. My boyfriend has been reassuring me that I was completely right for how I acted, and his ex-friend needed to let it go, but I still can't help but feel upset about it. I don't know if she was necessarily aware of the context of the necklace, or that my boyfriend gave it to me, but I thought it was pretty obvious. I also did somewhat cause a scene at his sister's party, so that's making me feel like I'm wrong as well. Not the a-hole. It's a super weird request. My grandma has a custom necklace with gemstones for all her grandchildren, and in 27 years, not one person has ever asked to try it on. You don't need to accommodate a weird person you don't even know. Not the a-hole. Guaranteed she would have wandered away, and somehow it got lost. She just wanted to pretend like it was her necklace. His family are doing her absolutely no favors in perpetuating this fantasy and giving in to her. They need to back you up. She sounds unstable, like Wayne's crazy ex-girlfriend in Wayne's World. Not the a-hole. No one has the right to demand your possessions. Once you said no, she should have immediately backed off. I can see why the family aren't people you want to spend time with. It also seems like boyfriend doesn't want to spend much time with them either. Ignore what they say and listen to your boyfriend. He actually cares for you. The first day I met my boyfriend, he told me that he had bought a ring for his ex and was planning to marry her, but soon after caught her cheating and threw the ring away. Him and his ex broke up 3 years before we met. Now here we are, together 2 years and with a 6-month-old son. He calls me his wife to everyone, however at the same time tells me he does not believe in marriage and doesn't want to get married ever. This confuses me because he was planning to marry his ex. He says he only wanted to marry her because he was obsessed with her and wanted to trap her, and that it wasn't healthy. I feel so sad, mad, and offended that he doesn't want to marry me, especially since I'm the mother of his child and supposed love of his life. We had a huge fight a few months ago, October, when I found an old Facebook post he made when him and his ex were only together about a year, begging her to marry him. I told him, propose to me by our next anniversary, April 25th, or I'm leaving you. The thing is, I love him very much. He is kind and sweet, and also a great dad to our baby. Our anniversary is creeping up, and I don't know what to do with my ultimatum. Am I the a-hole for threatening to leave? Everyone sucks here. If being married is important to you, then there's nothing wrong with telling him this is important to me, and if you don't have the same view and don't see this in our future, we need to go our separate ways. But do this or else is not healthy, especially if you don't actually plan to follow through and are just using this to try to get him to do what you want. Though I am a little confused as to why you'd have a baby with someone who doesn't share your values on something so important to you. Not the a-hole. There are legal protections and things that need to be in place for both of you when you're married. His insecurity and issues are giant red flags, especially when he considered he wanted to trap his ex through marriage. The fact you had a kid with him was a serious mistake, but you should rectify it and go. You're the a-hole. You say you love him. You have a child with him. He is a great dad to our baby. But you saw an old Facebook post and got jealous. Rather than rein yourself in and think things through with a clearer head, you threatened to break up with him unless he agreed to marry you by a certain date. How does one do that to someone they love? Well, either you undo your ultimatum or you don't. If you do, then perhaps you can right the ship in time. But I suspect that would require a lot more than, oh, that thing I said? Never mind, I take it back. He's been hurting all this time. It's not the kind of thing a person can forget. She was willing to do this. What's the next ultimatum going to be? How is she going to hurt me next time if I stay? Will be returning thoughts. If he is wise, getting an attorney lined up for any custody battle. If you don't take the ultimatum back, you may have succeeded in destroying what otherwise sounds like a great relationship out of spite and jealousy. Or you may succeed in getting the marriage, but not necessarily the marriage you wanted. Why? Because there would be a poison pill buried in its heart, an always present source of potential resentment. My ex's parents pay my son's school tuition, and they were planning to pay for his stepson's after the wedding so that they could attend the same school. They asked me if I thought it would be a good idea for the boys to go to the same school, and I told them I didn't want them to go to the same school. The reason I said this is because my son is always complaining that his stepbrother picks on him, and whenever I try to bring it up to my ex, his fiancé always accuses me of lying and trying to cause issues. My son is doing great at his school, and I don't want him to be negatively impacted by his stepbrother, so I think it's best they continue going to different schools. After speaking to me, my ex's parents decided they wouldn't be paying his school tuition after all. My ex's fiancé is mad at me, and if she didn't hate me before, I'm pretty sure she does now. My ex can more than afford to pay and send his stepson to the same or a similar school, but she's acting like I've destroyed his future. She wants me to tell his parents I was lying, but I won't do that. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Parents asked if it was a good idea. You gave them your honest opinion. Sounds like more issues are going to be brewing between stepmom and you, your son. Not the a-hole. You were honest about the situation when you spoke to your ex's parents, and ultimately, it was their decision to decide not to pay to send the stepson to the same school. Your ex should spend more of her time focusing on correcting her son's poor behavior instead of having a go at you. You are absolutely not the a-hole. If they had to ask you, they suspected issues already. No offense, you're the mother of their grandchild and always will be. Maybe you have a good relationship, etc., but their son is your son's father. A father should be quite able to say whether it's a good idea for his son's stepbrother to go to the same school. His parents have shown that they do not trust his judgment where this woman and her spoiled son are concerned. Good on them for seeing he's prioritizing them over your son and looking out for him.